Welcome back to Copenhagen Blue. Today is Timey Belt and Alternator Day on the $500 Kia. It's a cold day in Michigan, so I got the heater going in the garage. Let's get started. We're going to take off our wheel lugs, which is a 22 millimeter. I mean, that's freaking huge for this thing. But we gotta take our wheel off so we can gain access to the side of the engine. I'd say this one will need some tires. Woo-wee. Now down here, we need to get this plastic cover out of the way, which looks like it's just held in by maybe a 10 millimeter. Good guess. Alright. Now I had to actually cut the alternator belt off because our alternator is seized up, so that's one of the other things that we're going to address while we're here. See, I jacked up the motor using a block of wood just to support it on the oil pan there. We are in fact going to have to take off our upper motor mount so that we can gain access to the timing belt because it's behind this cover and another cover down below. For our upper bolts on our motor mount on the passenger side, looks like it's a 14 millimeter. We have 3 of those. And we're going to undo these slowly so that the motor can settle on that block of wood. Make sure that we don't have any issues. So now on this last one, we'll start to notice that our motor's dropping. Okay, it shifted. Okay, it sank a little bit, so I'm going to just give it a little pump up. There we go. We have our bolt on the back side of the motor mount here. It's a 17 millimeter. Now, the grounding strap is already rusted away, so we're going to have to replace that anyway, but we should be able to lift our motor mount bracket right off the top. Now with the motor mount bracket out of the way, we have better access to the side of the motor. We probably still need to get this bracket off, but let's see. We need to undo our timing cover the rest of the way. We have our power steering belt and water pump pulley down there, which seems to all move, but we do have a power steering leak, so I have to find that as well. 10 millimeter bolts here and here. It looks like we have another one down here. Get our timing belt cover out of the way. Now that we have our timing cover off, we can see we have our timing belt. There's some pretty good cracking on this belt, so it definitely needs to be replaced. I believe I also got a new idler for this, just to be on the safe side. But right now we need to take off our water pump pulley bolts, which are down there. There's 4 of them. I believe they're 10 millimeters. You're gonna have to put like a screwdriver in the water pump because our belt for the actual crankshaft we already took off, and that would normally hold everything in position, but we already took that off. So what I'm going to do is hold this in position so that way as I turn it, this can't go anywhere, which will hopefully stop our water pump pulley from moving. Let's see if that works. Alright, I was able to kind of work down there with a 10 millimeter ratchet and get the bolts all loosened up by pressing down on the belt here to stop the pulley from moving. We're going to leave that loose for the moment, but we're not actually going to take it off. We need to take off the power steering belt. We also have to get off our AC belt down there. You can see how bad that belt is down there. Wow, it's nasty. And then we're going to take off the crankshaft and get some more stuff out of the way. Now one thing we have to do is loosen that pulley right there so that we can get the AC compressor belt loose. And it looks like there's a bolt on the back side. So we used a 14 millimeter here for our bolt to release the tensioner itself, and then there's a 12 millimeter on the back we used to actually wind the tensioner that way a little bit, and we were able to get our belt off for our AC. Before we can take our crankshaft pulley off, we need to line up the motor. So we actually put a 22 millimeter on the crankshaft bolt, and we're going to rotate the engine until we get the timing marks, which are right down there, lined up. So we need the notch in the crankshaft itself to line up with that T for top dead center, which then also will align this with a dot in there, and we should be in good shape. All right, now you always want to rotate your motor clockwise, and it'll get harder and easier as it goes through its compression strokes. I think that's it, 'cause there's a little itty bitty white mark right there. All right, we're gonna go with that. Now we need to get this crankshaft bolt off, and that's a 22 millimeter. I'm hoping this comes off in one shot. Moved a little bit, but not a lot of it. Now your crankshaft itself is keyed, so it only goes on one way. We're gonna wiggle this off. There we go. All right. We've got like a washer of some sort here. Goes on with the key. We're gonna set that to the side. Looks like we need to get that water pump pulley off. I probably was supposed to do that earlier. That's also a 12 millimeter. Now we want to loosen our power steering bracket bolt so we can adjust that, and that'll just slide in once we free it up. Now it looks like it's our 12 millimeter on both of those. Just break that free, which once we loosen that up, we should be able to slide our power steering pump forward and remove the belt. So I'm going to actually take this bolt out all the way for our power steering, because if I move that out of the way, I'm wondering if I can get to the alternator that I need to replace as well. Kill two birds with one stone. Long bolt, set it to the side. Bolt here in our bracket. Went all the way down. Alright, got that free. Take this off. Hopefully, we're not about to dribble fluid everywhere. So let's see if we can't get that out of the way, which gives us access to our alternator bracket and bolt right there. Now that we have our adjuster lubed up, we're going to actually take off the electrical connectors, which we already took the one down here off that plugged in. You kind of have to squeeze it and pull it out, and then there's a nut down there that actually holds on the positive supply line to the battery from the alternator. So we need to undo that, and then there's another bolt way down in there above the oil filter. It's actually the one that pivots for the alternator, so we need to get that out of the way as well. Gotten our nut off the back of the alternator, and we've taken the bracket off. All you do is use your 12 millimeter and you run that bolt all the way out. So we just have the one bolt on the bottom of the alternator left to take out, and we can install our new one. We've got the pry bar on way down there on the back side of this bolt that goes all the way through the bottom of the alternator. I'm going to see if I can kind of push on that. So we've got to be able to get that free. It's able to swivel on it, but we've got to actually get that to release. And right now, it doesn't want to do that. And I don't think I can get an air chisel or anything in there to get it moving. So I'm not sure what we're going to do here yet. And let's see if a little heat can make a difference, because something wants to be difficult. Alright, so after a while, finally realized that there's a groove there, and you don't actually beat the bolt out of there, you just kind of rest it in there, which would have been really good for me to know. Guess I should have looked at those instructions. Now let's see if we can get this alternator out of here. Well, that was a whole lot of fighting, and we've got the alternator unhooked. We've got all the wires disconnected. We have to take this bracket off now, though, which looks like it's a, what do I got? A 14 millimeter? Well, crap. We need that. Anytime you take a bracket off, try and put the bolts back in the spot that it goes, so that way you remember how it goes on. It makes life a lot easier. Alright, we should have created enough of an opening now that we can pull out our seized up. Good lord. Come on, come on. Alternator. Fudge this thing. Woo-wee. Now here's the bolt that I was trying to get out, and I would actually assume that it should still come out because I need to reuse it on the new alternator. So we're gonna have to try and beat that out either way, but I'm guessing it was just pretty rusted up. So I guess let's try and do what we couldn't do before, which was let's get a good angle on it. We're just gonna try and, now I should put the nut back on it, but I kind of destroyed the nut. So I guess let me see if I have another nut that fits on that real quick. Well, I found a new nut. It's a 14 millimeter instead of a 12. And I think I'm gonna be able to make it either work because it works, or it's gonna work because it doesn't have a choice, and I'm just going to make it work. So we're gonna thread that on a little bit. It's happy enough. So a couple threads on. Let's see if we can't get this out. Hey, there we go. That's what I was trying to do from within the car without any freaking luck. Good Lord, that thing's just, oh, look at the corrosion there. That's just awesome. Yeah, that thing was never gonna come out. Good gosh. Yeah, we'll have to clean that up with a little bit of sandpaper here, or wire brush. All right, this is going in a vise. I'll be back. A little bit of persuasion and it came right on out. We're gonna clean this up. We're gonna grab our new alternator and we're gonna get that thing installed. So here's our brand new alternator. That is a Wilson! Never heard the brand, but you know what? The pulleys match up. This one actually spins, unlike this one that does not do anything. Make this bolt a little bit happier. Then it goes in this way. Oh, that's nice and easy. Nice and easy. Washer, a crush washer that go over that. And then we have our new-ish nut that we're gonna put on. Now in reality, you probably didn't even need to really undo this because it doesn't compress. This is just a pivot shaft apparently. So I could have just pulled it out, and here I'm trying to beat the fudge out of it, which apparently you did once you got it out. So we've got that. We have a new washer, lock washer, and nut for the positive connection. So we're good there. Let's get this thing back in and get it connected. We're gonna come down with our alternator. Alright. Rotate. And son of a gun, that dropped right in. We're going to remove our 10 millimeter bolts that we loosened already on our water pump so we can get our pulley off, and that way we're able to get to this one bolt that holds on that lower timing cover. Getting our last 10 millimeter bolt out of our water pump pulley, setting that to the side. We can now take that off, get it out of the way, which gives us a chance to move the V pulley right there. Now we have access to that bolt on the cover. We should also feel our water pump. We actually don't have any play in our shaft, which is very cool. So let's finish getting this timing cover off. So with a little cleaning here, you can see we have a timing mark right on that tooth that lines up with that pin up there. So we are in fact at top dead center. Now, the kit that we went with on this is actually a Continental timing belt kit, and the reason I went with this is it actually comes with a new idler as well as a tensioner and the belt. So everything is in one kit. We have our belt, we have our new tensioner right here, we have our idler right here, and then we have a sticker so that we know when we did our timing belt last. So there's a bolt right down there in the middle of the belt you can see, and that one is actually, it looks like what we break free. We're going to rotate it away from the water pump, I'm guessing. So let's take care of that. We have our 12 millimeter on the upper bolt. We're going to break that free. Okay, that wasn't a lot of tension on there, which is good. And then we're going to break the lower nut which is right down there. We're going to break that free as well. Looks like it's easier to get from the bottom than it is probably from the top. So with a little bit of pressure, I can get that belt to move back, and I think it's going to be just enough to get that belt off. There we go. We got our belt off on the bottom. Now we should be able to get it on the top under these two 12 millimeters, and let's replace that tensioner. We have our timing belt. Pull that off and pull it right up through the top. Here is our old tensioner. Obvious difference between old and new, so definitely good thing that we're replacing that. The only thing I don't like is that we have to transfer over the spring. There's a spring that was actually on here that went right in here, and we have to transfer that over. I'm not crazy about that idea, but it is what it is. We also need to undo our idler pulley right here. We're going to replace that as well. And for whatever reason, they decided that a 14 millimeter worked really well on the inside of there when like everything else is a 12. We've got our new idler installed here. You can see here is our old one. It was a little crusty as well, and bearing was shot. So nice new one that's quiet there. 14 millimeter, we're going to install that, and we're going to put our tensioner back on. Well, we have our new tensioner on, we have our idler on, we're going to get our belt put on. Now the way we're going to do that is actually to take the tensioner, we're going to pull it back away from the water pump, tighten the upper bolt, and then we put the belt on, and then we release the tension, which then allows it to automatically tension against the belt. But we're going to line the timing belt up and just slide it on the bottom here. We still have our timing mark set here, and we have it down on the crankshaft in position. So let's let the tension go and see what happens. Moment of truth. I'm going to release the tension on this and see how it goes. Okay, so we should be good on tension. Now we need to rotate the motor around 2 times to see that our timing marks line up again. Got our 22 millimeter on here. Go around, make sure our timing marks line up. Now you have to remember too that it's not an even ratio. It's not one rotation of the crankshaft for the top, for the cam. It's a half. So there's one rotation. Now if you feel resistance besides just compression strokes, you have to stop. Alright, so there's our crankshaft where it should be, and there's our camshaft where it should be, so we're still in time. So what we're going to do is we're going to tighten down that lower tensioner bolt. I tightened the bottom bolt down there to 19 foot-pounds, which is what Kia specifies. Now you can see that the spring is on the bottom tab there and on the back side of the tab on the tensioner, so we are good to go. We've got our power steering back on, we've got our alternator back on. We need to replace that idler pulley down there. We need to take off this here. I have a new idler pulley for our AC belt, so let's actually our tensioner. There we go. Governor. If you ever have something that's corroded, and obviously here in Michigan we have a lot of corrosion, these threads were all gunked up. I put some breakaway on it or some PB blaster and ran them in and ran them out and ran them in and ran them out and cleaned them up and used a little bit of a wire wheel, and it made it so everything actually moves nicely. I'm going to lube this up and put it back in, and we're going to get everything back together on this tensioner. Now I put a little aluminum anti-seize on there, and it runs in very nice, very nice, and that'll make it so that this is really easy to adjust when it comes time here shortly to tensioning our belts up. We'll put on our washer, and then we have our backing washer here, and our tensioner right there. Everything's happy. We have our little plate right here, and then we have our nut. We had our nut. We have our nut. So we have a 14 millimeter nut. Tighten that up. Loosen it back just a little bit so that we can adjust everything. Let's start getting this timing cover back on. All right, so we have our little beauty cover on here to protect the belt. Now, not that we're going to hopefully run into this again, because I don't plan on ever having to do a timing belt again, but just for the sake of timing, there are timing marks on this wheel right here that we were trying desperately to see. I'm going to mark those with some paint just so they stand out a little bit more for us in the future. Hopefully, like I said, we never have to take this off again, but if we do, we have some marks to line up. It'll help us getting things together. Let's get this crankshaft back on. We have our crankshaft bolt, and we have to tighten this down to 110 foot-pounds. Problem is there's really no good way to stop this crankshaft pulley from moving. So, yeah, it's gonna be ugga-duggas. That's probably about 110 foot-pounds. At least that's what we're gonna go with. You can see our timing marks down there that I dotted in white, lined up with top dead center. We're gonna put the rest of our covers on. We're gonna put our water pump pulley back on. We need to put our belts on. Then we need to adjust everything, tighten it up, and we're gonna see if this thing starts. Something I did because I was struggling to get the water pump pulley on, I marked both where the pulley and the V pulley both line up so that the holes are centered, and then that way once I got the threads started or I had them lined up, I could tell where to try and get these bolts in, because they're teeny tiny little bolts. So they're 10 millimeters, but they're tiny, and you kind of have to work your hand down here sideways, work some magical finger stuff to get everything going. It is the stuff that if you master it, you know, someone will appreciate it. Well, everything's back together. We've got our power steering pump done. We've got our belt, alternator tensioned. We have our tensioner done for the AC compressor. Put our little beauty cover back on just for fun, but let's see if she fires up.
Nothing's gonna like come flying off at me, right?
No, should.
The fuck? What is that blue thing? What is the blue wire stuff that's like?
That's a grounding strap, it's alright.
You know...
Fire in the hole! That's just the lifters. That just needs to pump up with oil. Needs an oil change. Whew, stinks, needs gas. The $550 Kia is that much closer to being back on the road. Timing belt's done, alternator, all the belts, all the pulleys, all the idlers, everything. We just have transmission fluid to change, power steering leak to chase down, we have brakes to do, and a little bit of wiring.
Everybody can relax, I found the car. Needs some suspension work and shocks and brakes, brake pads, lining, steering box, transmission, rear end. How much? Only $4,800. Maybe new rings, also mufflers, a little wiring.
And I think we're going to be in business, so we're that much closer to getting the Kia back on the road. But I appreciate you taking the time to watch. Hit like, hit subscribe, and I'll see you next time.